Hey everyone,
It's Chad Church,
and Nikolai Phelan.
and we are excited to bring to you our brand new podcast,
Hullabaloo. A cross-generational
media consumption podcast
where two gay men
from different generations
watch movies,
read books
listen to music, and more.
to bridge Gen X.
And Gen Z. I thought that was pretty good.
Let's do another take.
How we both live unfiltered. I would say that acts of censorship are always in an effort to create self-censorship. Like if a government or an agency or even uh, uh, a company is censoring, there's some level of understanding that they're implicating a kind of influence to try to create self-censorship in the same way that consent is manufactured, right?
I'm not following you exactly.
So what I'm saying is basically, do you know how like they say this? There's this saying about power, the secession of power, people giving power away. A lot of power in authoritarian governments actually are not taken from the people. It's people not believing and being afraid and thus giving their power away.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with censorship. It's a kind of another tentacle of the beast, is that it in a similar way, censorship never really can cover everything. So what they hope to do is create essentially a culture of fear. So one self-centers, or even maybe not fear, but uncomfortability. You talk about like politeness and manners and the way that like prescriptive versus descriptive grammar are used to oppress
Mm-hmm.
and to delegitimize forms of communication. Because, like, there's no wrong way of communicating. There's no wrong way of communicating. This is something I remember I learned in one of my linguistics courses, was that essentially the idea of like prescriptive grammar is it's often used as a way of looking at, like, for example, if people in a small like town in the South and they're mostly black are communicating a certain way, well, guess what? Prescriptive grammar lets the like white people come in and basically say, yeah, this is just not how people communicate. And it's like, actually, it's exactly how they communicate because they're doing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
not how you communicate it. And you represent the establishment. And so it's just a weapon that can be used to kind of bring a sledgehammer down. But communication is just a tool for understanding. And if people are understanding each other, then it's working.
Yeah.
And with that, since rant is over, welcome to our introductory episode of Hullabaloo,
Yes. Welcome to Hullabaloo, where we love you.
where we love you. We're super excited. This is just going to be a fun little teaser tester. My name is Nikolai Phelan,
And I am Chad Church.
and we are launching a podcast called Hullabaloo. This
Hullabaloo.
is yet the one, and it is. Well, actually, I don't want to dominate. How about you take over for a bit, Chad, and tell
I
them
will
what we got.
I will take over for a bit. Well, as I see this, and we're both going to have two different views of how we see this that are somewhere going to align in the middle of what we came up with. And what we came up with is hopefully pretty engaging for people in a time, in a space, in this world where it's nice to get out of the mainstream and kind of fall back on some things that we used to consider to be, uh, daily life. I'm realizing lately all of the things that I'm missing. Like I just realized the other day that Carol Burnett, not Carol Burnett, Mary Tyler Moore died in 17. It's almost a decade. I hadn't realized it. And it's because we're so inundated with all of this here in America anyway, and really throughout the world. We're just
Definitely.
inundated with a lot of garbage from a lot of garbage people that are taking, in my opinion, our joy away. And what
Totally.
we find joy in is different types of media. So a few years back now, a couple years back now,
Yeah.
almost getting a few, I had the luxury of meeting Nico. And the way this happened was kind of a kismet, I guess, really. I had planned on a trip to Spain, and really it started out a trip to Spain or Italy, and Italy was the one that I was going for. Somebody that I had made acquaintance with a couple years earlier in Barcelona. I'm sorry, in Ibiza, lived in Barcelona, and we had kind of kept in contact a little bit through Instagram. And during that time, I said, well, yeah, I'm doing my annual Europe trip this year. And he was like, oh, wow, we should get together. Maybe Ibiza, maybe, I live in Barcelona. And I was like, sure, because this gentleman was of interest to me in the way that, some people that you meet from time to time, it's not that, you want to get with them or anything. It's just that they interest you. They're interesting people, so you want to know more about them. And whereas I'm a writer, and I guess a bit of a creative, I wanted to this
Very
gentleman.
cute. Just so modest. Yeah, you're a creative for sure.
Well,
I'm a bit of a creative.
that's how I spill at the cocktail parties I attend.
Yeah,
You know.
it's a little bit. I just I dabble.
um, but anyway, I was interested. This cat has a lot of interesting content. When I met him, we were in Ibiza. It seemed like there was going to potentially be a friendship there. Well, I got stood up when I changed my plans from going to Sardinia to look at real estate, and then I got guess cajoled into, well, how about Spain? So I thought for a bit about it, and I was like, well, yeah, I could do a road trip in Spain and really check out Spain this time because I'd been a few times.
So you
Uh,
were gonna go to Spain. Your original plan was to go to Sardinia to meet him.
no, original plan was to go to
Just to go to
Sardinia in
Sardinia.
Italy
Got it.
to
And then you'd met him in Ibiza, just to like lay out the timeline. Yeah. So you went
but
to
this was
Sardinia. Yeah.
years earlier,
Right. Right.
and a couple of years earlier, and he does some modeling. He modeled some of this glory gear garb that I had, and sent the pictures back and stuff. And so I was like, well, sure, absolutely. I was like, I gotta. He ended up paying more money for the um the the post when it got there because of customs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm gonna meet ya. I'll take you out for drinks or dinner, lunch, whatever, and toss you back the extra 50, $100, whatever it was to receive this product. I get and I but I like I said, I'd been to Barcelona before, I'd been to Sagrada de La Rambla and all this stuff that I see as like my first trip vision when I
Right.
go to places. And so it wasn't on the top of my list, but I was like, oh, this is cool. And I'll meet him. And I was like, well, how do I put this together now? Because I was going to be doing a very different thing. So I thought road trip. And I thought that's perfect. I'll get the opportunity to kind of, well, develop a friendship, interview him about, what he's doing, what it's like, because he was Generation Z and I'm Generation X, and I find a really interesting foil that creates in between our generations. I've not met many millennials that are at that same level that I think the connectivity takes place with Gen Z and Gen X.
So interesting.
Anyway,
You feel that like you don't like, and what is it with millennials that you feel you don't always connect as much? Because I find that I connect with a lot of different generations, even boomers, but they have to be special because there are some boomers that I'm like, you're a boomer with a capital B.
yeah, yeah, a boomer bummer, a boomer bummer.
A boomer bummer is very funny. It's really not a
Well,
boomer, a bummer.
I feel that somehow, while the sensitivity that millennials have uh, is admirable, and realistic, if we were living in a world that offered us the more of the luxury of being that sensitive, but we're not. And what I've noticed with people from Gen Z is that you guys, while you don't have the same rough edge that Gen X has, most times you have understanding at least about how that difference is, and you seem to be more willing to engage in the roughness of life. And I feel like millennials are were raised in a place that felt like they could be comforted. I mean, this is where
Wow,
the safe
so
spaces.
interesting. So what you're saying is because while you were talking about this, I was like curious to see if like this is actually like a collective experience. And it is. It's like literally like your generation like has a real fucking problem with millennials. It's true. It goes, okay, I'm gonna read you just a little thing from Reddit, which it says, "What's with Gen X and their hatred towards us millennials? We've been dealing with baby boomers knocking us for the nearly last 2 decades, but I've noticed in the last 5 years or so, Gen X has been trashing us. What's their deal? I can understand maybe the older Xers, the one born in the 60s. Because are you born in the 60s or early 70s?
I was born in the 1966.
You're born 1966. Oh my gosh. So yeah, you're yeah, my mom is like on the cusp because she's 63. So
Hmm.
so you're like, you're on the cusp too, because she's technically a boomer, I think.
Hmm.
So you were like, and I'm a cusp too. I am technically a zillennial. I am,
Zillennial.
I'm a zillennial. I am literally Gen Z by, like, I am not Gen Z by like days, like 30 days. So
That's
I'm
funny.
like 30 days away from being Gen Z. But the truth is, millennials are a very interesting window, which is interesting that we're both window generations between the two.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it says, I've noticed in the last 5 years, Gen X has been trashing us. What's their deal? But born 70s, born Xers, especially the mid-late 70s, why do they have a problem with us? I mean, boomers screwed us both over. Boomers and even older Gen X hating on us is whatever, but those mid-late Xers talking smack kind of stings. For us older millennials, those of us born in the 80s, look at them as our older siblings. Some of them are actually our older siblings, and it really hurts my feelings, is the truth. And he goes, one defining moment of that generation that always stuck in my mind is how I went to my sister's high school, sister's older millennial, to pick her up because she was sick. As we entered the reception office of the high school, there were two guys coming out with girls that couldn't be above the age of 15. These men looked to be at 18 at least. Mom got to snooping through other parents, staff, kid or two, and found out those men were coming to pick up their high school girlfriends. What does this have to do with Gen X? Sorry, I'm reading this response, but okay, let's see. I had to sit there with my sister out in the car while my mom raged at the office, and it turned to a big debacle when other parents joined in. But it's not all of them, is it? Some Gen X people never harp on millennials. Never did any of that messed up stuff. They were just normal Gen X people, just like every generation. They have their bad peeps. Millennials aren't the narcissistic devil. Not all boomers are rich sadists like the internet wants them to make out. And maybe some So you guys were kind of the forgotten generation, Is that the Gen
Yeah,
X
and
thing?
what it did for us is it built character, it built strength, it built self-reliance. You probably never rode a bicycle without a helmet. We rode our fucking bikes every day
Yes, I
without.
did.
Okay, okay, this is perfect. You did, but how many millennials? Every time I talk to a millennial about just get out there and suck it up and do it,
But you
my
don't have
niece is,
kids.
but it doesn't matter.
But I think
I've
it
got.
does because I think, Chad, here's the thing. Gen X created millennials. So the
Mhm.
millennials are because you guys were forgotten.
And that's the problem. These people have destroyed, I believe, have destroyed a whole generation yes, everybody can win the
Who's these
soccer game.
people?
These people with these children
So
who
you're saying
said,
Gen Xers with their millennial
"Oh,
children
okay, these people, Gen Xers, with
and
these
baby boomers.
millennials."
Some of them are baby boomers, but
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
millennials weren't giving birth to millennials for
Yeah,
sure. That was like the end of
well,
that.
maybe a couple of them.
I don't think so. Not so many. Not the helicopter kids. That was when abortions got popular, I think.
But this is the thing. they these Gen Xers and some of these boomers raised these children because they felt like, oh, well, if I had only, I wish if I hadn't been a latchkey kid and my mom was home, making quiche for me when I got home from school or making quiche for us for dinner when I got home from school, it would have been a better lifestyle. My friend Gwen, her mom worked, her dad worked. When her mom would leave directions on the stove, and we grew up in a upper middle class, environment. When her mom would, be working, she would leave directions on the
That's
refrigerator
what my
on,
mom's mom did too.
right, and like, you do this. Like, when I get home, all I'm gonna do is, set the table, whatever, wash my hands and eat because you're gonna make dinner. And our generation decided, or some of the people in this
There's
Gen X,
deep pain that was in your generation. I
but
know, like my
it
mom
didn't.
describing my mom, her mom, not to overshare, but my mom, her mom did that to her. And then my mom's mom committed suicide. And so she, like, that experience of the being kind of left behind to raise like her little sister, to be self-dependent. She was a helicopter parent for in many regards and also did work. It didn't breed kids who weren't self-sufficient. I mean, I think the extremism resulted in extremism. And I think that when we
But here's
have
the thing, it wasn't extremism for us. Nobody thought, people
but
didn't
this is
think it
but
was.
if your generation, if it was so good for your generation, our world would be in a better place.
At the end of the day, it was very good for our generation because we know how to fix things. We know when we go out, like if our bicycle broke, we would be on the street with our dad's stolen wrench fixing the bike.
Yeah, because 'cause you're handling it. You're living you guys are the, Lord of the Flies.
Right?
It's the
Yeah.
children on the island. I know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there aren't pros to it, but isn't it possible to believe that for a generation that is known as being lost and is clearly, like the funniest thing to me that I find so compelling is you're as a person, like people we're all getting to know, like people are going to meet us today. This is our introductory episode, which is honestly so funny that we were just jumping into it. But we're kind of like, we're going to tell you what it's about. Instead, we're like, we're just going to be it. We're going to do the damn thing. And we're going to get
Yeah,
into the
right?
generational argument right away. Hullabaloo, strap in, motherfuckers. Okay, this is our first episode. So, is that if anybody who will meet Chad, you know that Marina, when she saw your picture, she said, he seems so kind. He
That's
seems. so kind. And I
That
said, he is. I said, I could send you this. I was like, I should send him the screenshots of the conversations I'm having with Marina, because I was just like, it would be so assuring if, as a friend, if I like had found out someone was talking about me, and that like that the people, the way that people were perceiving me was just was, like, really wonderful, and then that person was confirming it. But the point is, you and my mom has this too, right? She has that Gen Xer perspective, and I think because of her experience. And my grandpa was like this too. He was not present. He was very, very successful, very, very, a very successful man. He did what needed to be done. That being said, his relationship with me was very different than his relationship with his mom. Why? Because the reality was that his lack of presence, he could never face that it had hurt her. And that even she was so used to being strong that even she couldn't face it. And so what did it do? It created a space between them. And my dad, he was born 1965, so 1 year younger than you.
mhm.
My dad was one of 8 children. My grandpa, who was the nicest, truly like the best person. My grandma, my grandpa, they were born in the 20s. They were completely against segregation. They were people for the people.
Mhm.
Lineage from Ireland, right? My grandpa was not present for my father. And I didn't know that because he couldn't be. He
No,
was working.
exactly.
But here's the thing. That was sickness. That was the beginning of a sickness in a system, a capitalistic system in America that is continuing to cough up blood, like truly hack itself to death at this point. I know that it hurt my dad so much because he told me once this story about being at a chiropractor. And this is the first time I understood that this was why he didn't know how to be present.
Mhm.
He didn't know. Those Gen Xers only know how to either be a helicopter parent or to repeat that, because to not have a present figure in your house, it may yield self-sufficiency as nature allows. And god damn it, are we proud of you for fucking doing that. You deserve to hear that we're proud of you, because that was fucking hard, but you deserved to have a parent there. You deserve to have your family
Nobody's
there.
nobody's arguing that. I mean, I remember when it was just out of high school, and my father and we just did not get along. He almost drowned me in a pool at like 10 years of age, and I was done by accident, by the way that those boomers were in those days, right? Well, you got to throw the kid in the pool so he'll learn how to
Right.
swim, and yeah, the kid doesn't know how to swim. I'm drowning.
My
And
God.
so there were things like that. But I remember telling my father, all I want is that in a big, an argument that had like gone to the top and then was coming down the other side. And I was like, all I want is for you to be my friend. And my father said, I will never be your friend. I will
Right.
always only be your father. And my father didn't have a father to know exactly what a father, even of that time, would have looked like.
Right.
I mean, he had a father, but he wasn't a present father, obviously,
Right.
to know what a father that time looked like. And so, yeah, I mean, there was absolutely that line there. And, the mom picked up all the lovey, huggy, kissing thing. And another question, I don't know why you've never said, I love you, that I can even recall, unless it was out of anger. And you were like, I'm spanking you because I love you.
Right.
That's a real
It's such a twisted it's it's the sad mechanics of, to bring us circles back to this concept of censorship, right? It's the mechanics of that patriarchal, like, inability to allow love. And so love must always be expressed through moments of aggression. And it's only as he is lording the power that God has given him and proving that he is the number one in the house, that he is allowed to say it because nobody can question him. He's already doing something violent. Should they say anything about it, the hand can swing elsewhere.
But here's the thing, though. So much of that, like if I look back now at my childhood and as many ass whoopings as I got, there was not one that I can legitimately say I didn't deserve. I mean, I won't say deserve. I don't think people should beat children. But there was not a time that, as I look back, that I don't know that that didn't help me evolve to a better being, right? And I think the problem with many of the millennials, is that their Gen X parents or their boomer parents were so busy trying to escape, the faults of their parents, they overdid it because it's true. No, there is one winner, one winning team to a soccer game. Now, and maybe people feel a little put out because they didn't win, but that's part of this process in order to get.
The participation trophy conversation to me feels so like it's such a I feel like the Gen X like millennial issue is it's so like, why are we not able to see the mirror in one another? Why can't we look at ourselves and go, I am fucked. You are fucked. You're
I
also
don't.
fucked. No, but I'll finish. Like, let me, because, and let me like point out, because it's like, there's this sense of being like, what's your problem with millennials? And I go, but millennials they were given essentially, like, they were given a losing game and then were told to try to run fast. And then they had to live through the financial crisis. And then they were like, let's get these degrees and let's do this thing. And all of the rules that had come before for Gen X, right? So all that self-sufficiency you guys had, you also had a ramp that was there. It existed. It would go somewhere. You could have a career. Now, everything that was injustice for the millennials, honey, they just turned the fucking knob to 11 because we're experiencing the late forms of capitalism, where now it was something that came to me the other day, which was like, I was thinking about people who there's a lot of people in Europe, for example, who are very critical. It's very easy to just be critical of America and then pretend like the problems that face America have nothing to do with them, right? They
Mhm,
go, this isn't my problem. They go,
mhm.
that has nothing to do with me. We're in late stage capitalism. So they go, I'm from a country that never colonized people. So ta-da, that's your problem. I go, I don't know how to tell you this, but me and the people that I love weren't doing that. And in fact, we've been vocally against it. And in a way, I actually do believe, and this is like a slight sidebar, but it is something I want to say, which is that I do believe that there's a concept, I want to call it like it's the elder child citizen, which is people who've lived in oppressive, toxic, abusive countries, homes, etc., and then have to transcend that, show up to the fight, and stand up for something in the face of that. You have an actual sense of maturity. Whereas a lot of those people I'm talking to have a script of innocence that it's like, well, congratulations. There's a lot of people in a lot of places with bad governments who are innocent too. You are not your government. And And here's the fun fact, and this is the thing that kind of came to me like lightning, which was, by the way, these billionaires don't want to buy a country, sweetheart. They want the whole damn planet,
Mhm, mhm.
lest we forget. So, to circle this back to our generational conversation, Here's what I think is like my thing. Is there a way of embracing millennials for what they are? And instead of just being exhausted and tired of them, trying to recognize the gifts that each generation has, because we're all needed in the fight. Every one of us must take the call.
I am 1,000% with you in terms of the concept of let's all learn together, work together, and be together. But it's very hard. Like I'm not gonna my niece, whom I talk about a lot,
I'm like, I
whom I
wonder if
love.
your problems with millennials stem from the fact that you have like one toxic millennial who's like so toxic. To be fair, Chad has been traumatized by one really bad millennial.
She is a sweetheart. It's just that she can't seem to sometimes put together that, yeah, this fucking shit is hard. You gotta get out there, like, DoorDash driving isn't gonna get you what you need, it's a side gig. So you gotta work hard to make the shit happen, and it's not and I'm sorry, you're not gonna get your nails done and your hair did the way some of your girlfriends that got lucky and got the wealthy parents or whatever do every day. Sometimes you have to suck it up. It's one of the things that I really, really love about you is that you are 100% on your own, fucking doing what it takes to make shit happen, right? You understand that this is what it takes for me to pay the rent, to finance the film, the short film, to indulge myself in the things that I love. Oh, my niece is telling her mom that, she at 38 that she you know, it's so expensive to get a place in Boston and in the Boston area. And so, you're and I'm living at your house now for 5 years since you left here. And I was like, listen, I can't play that shit, honey. I love you to death, but you gotta like fucking bring it together. And so my issue is that many millennials just see it. I'm gonna wrap it around. Just see that it's supposed to be gimme, 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 never got, but it's not. The bottom line is we all have to suck it the fuck up and make it happen, period. And so I don't like
This is
the
the thing,
excuses.
Chad, is our experiences are so different than the average bears, and they don't represent most people.
Yours
Even
and yours and mine.
yours and mine, yeah, we do not represent the general public. Both me and you had to truly like cut like squares out for ourselves in our survival. And I think, my feeling is, I used to hold a bitterness towards my friends who came from more privileged backgrounds, who were more reliant on their parents. But then I just said to myself, I go, okay, so this is my path. My path is one where I don't have that. My
Mhm.
path is one where the people who were in my family, who I love, but who were not that supportive, who were inconsistent, and who were wonderful but flawed individuals. And I had to be the paternal figure in my own life. And that is a wonderful thing. It's a difficult thing.
I think
But
there's more of you guys that recognize that for yourselves in Gen Z than there ever will be of millennials.
I don't know about that. I actually, the thing about it is, for me, I guess I'm not so interested in labeling at either generation because I genuinely believe, and that let me say. Okay. So, because I know you're like these
No, no, listen.
So my feeling is this. The reason I don't want to label them is because I know that we are different. And if I were a generation who is listening to this, we millennials could become our audience. And And they could become, but this is the thing, if we tell them who they are, instead of creating space for them to be what they could be, just to say, let's say, for example, your hypothesis is true. There's a large chunk of millennials who are over here, and perhaps reality calls them over here. Don't you think it behooves us both to look at that, and instead of saying they're just going to be this way, and instead to go, I believe that you're capable of this, and sending us.
You won't find a fight there with me.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my dearer friends over the years now are like frenemies. Um,
Sorry, I just my dear friend, one of my dear frenemies. Yeah.
he is a millennial, and I was always very taken by how smart he was, how aware he was, and so forth. But then there was a disconnect, from a whole different place. And I had more faith for a long time because of him and some of the millennial friends that he had. I was like, yeah, y'all are getting at it, doing the things y'all need to do. And then it's like all of a sudden, maybe it was around COVID or something that I really started to see like, wow, a little bit of like sit around, not get something done, and like, expect that, you got to have a helmet if you're riding a bicycle. And I don't believe in that. I believe that we as Gen X have learned how to navigate through things, not just because we had the ramp up, but that ramp that we had up, we built our fucking selves
But
most
do you know
times.
do you know that your generation is the one that's kind of responsible for
And that disgusts me.
I know you hate him. I know, by the way.
No, 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 not
Anti
Trump. Not Trump, but my generation, that the frankly white males of my generation that had gone through the schooling, that understood what the assignment was, all of a sudden turn 50, 60 years old, just like their dads, and they're coming out with the same bullshit. And I'm like, but wait a minute, you marched with us,
Right.
and so I absolutely put a bunch of that in my generation, and then there's some of your generation that, for some reason are a bit kooky with that too,
Well, they were getting these, specific kind of programming, this Jubilee, like,
Yeah,
they found a way to get the propaganda in a format that was unassuming, looked like it was seeing both sides, when in reality, it was truly platforming some deranged ideas, because
Charlie Kirk.
it's literally this, it's like they're putting up a chicken against a machine gun, but the whole time they're going, "Listen, let's hear both sides." You're like, "It's a chicken versus a machine." Like, this doesn't, like, they go, "Which one's more dangerous?" They're like, "These chickens sometimes have salmonella." And it's like, the machine gun was designed to kill.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it was so crazy, but that's the insidious nature of it, is that we have to stop. I think we really, across generations, have to stop the self-flagellation, and we need to, because I think that the biggest mistake, or the thing that has really held us back, actually, has been um a prioritization of a kind of feeling and sentiment, which I know you feel this way too, where it's like, we have spent so much time being occupied, and truly occupied, with how people feel about things. And I actually think that we need to get a little more pragmatic. We need to get into a place where there's a healthy level of detachment, but it's backed by action. We do
Mhm.
not need to traumatize ourselves in order to do what needs to be done. We
Mhm.
can show it's like we have to understand that they're doing their research based on what will traumatize the public. What
Mhm.
are the images that will get you? What are the things that will haunt your visions? You saw those CCOT images. That is
Mhm.
it is violent, twisted iconography meant to disturb and completely dissociate the human conscious from itself and to terrify and to terrorize. And we have to learn how to detach. And it's like we also, I think, one of the most beautiful things, and like there's this proverb in Buddhism that I always bring up because it really shook something for me, which is that it doesn't matter where we are on the spectrum or how far we are. We actually just need to get out of our emotions, let go of any of that resentment, start to accept each other as we are, recognize the fallibility of the machine that has come, and go, all right, listen, comrade, you know, you're my brother. We are all in this together. These billionaires want the whole damn planet. And it is
We
up.
have tried. I think there's a level of, exhaustion for many of us. I know I'm exhausted. I did a YouTube video the other day that, at the end of it, I just, was on a whole different subject, and all of a sudden I find myself crashing out at the end of it, and I'm like, I am tired, and I, am just so sick and tired of this stuff. And the reality of it is that you try so hard and you get to a point where you're like, well, fuck it. Cause like right now, if you told me today that you're a Republican, it would completely change my view of you.
Right.
And I would be like,
No, wait, but Chad, just to clarify, I'm not talking about when I say accept each other, I'm not talking about
yeah,
Nazis.
well, yeah,
I'm
that's
not even talking about I'm not talking about anybody who sympathizes with that side. I'm actually talking about everybody who is with us.
okay,
That we
okay.
have to let go of these kinds of misunderstandings. Oh, you're a millennial, or you're this, or you're a TikTok, or you're, this kind of stuff.
It was never set up like that before. It
I
was,
know,
you know what I
but
mean? Like,
we'll continue. What were you going to say? Actually, I want to
it
hear
was never
what.
set up like that before. We didn't have this kind of separation, it be political party, or even until like 2016. That's all of a sudden when trans became a problem. Prior to that, I was just trying to fucking learn what trans was. Exactly how to take on an engagement with someone who's trans. And no, I didn't quite, and I still don't quite understand, me, they, them, us, his, hers, whatever, that stuff. And that's of my generation that, they're not so connected to, they're like, well, you got a dick, you're a man. Um, we weren't separated by these things, and now we are. And you're absolutely right. I can't just say, I don't like millennials. And I wouldn't just say, I don't like millennials. I'm saying I find more of a connection with Gen Z people because I feel like somehow in this timeline, you guys got more of you anyway, got and maybe it was the hard introduction into life that made you say, well, shit, I got to take it up a notch because it isn't this easy. And you did it. And I'm saying that a lot of the millennials that I've encountered have not done it. But we probably, since this is our introductory episode, want
No,
to
no, it's
get in.
okay. No, no, no. Let's
Like, no, 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 no,
continue.
no. You go.
Let's continue. No, because here's the thing I was going to say about this is that so there's this is what I was saying before about the kind of Buddhist proverb is that we really do have to like I think shake off the rust of our differences and recognize that there is a we are unified by an enemy. We are unified by not only an oppressive force but a truly diabolical and evil one. Very
Hmm.
stupid too, by the way. Stupid, egregious, clumsy as hell.
Ham,
Clumsy
ham.
as hell. Ham-handed. Yeah, ham-fisted, ham-handed, ham-fingered. And
small ham.
Truly, and small-handed, small, ham-handed, and ham-fingered. But, you know, we have to recognize that, like, this is the Buddhist proverb. I'll explain it first, and then I want to try to actually connect it to a misunderstanding I used to have with astrology, right? So in the Buddhist proverb, there's this thing where it basically, Buddha is telling this story about the wisdom of betting on the worst horse. Okay, so called The Wisdom of No Escape, in which, okay, so basically, so Buddha has a sutra about this excellent horse, the good horse, and the poor horse, and the really bad horse. The gist is that the excellent horse knows what to do and does it without you having to make any effort, and the really bad horse basically won't do what you want until you make its life a living hell. The purpose, though, is actually recognizing that we are the horse in different parts of our lives. And the beauty of the bad horse, because Buddha loves the worst horse the most. And this is something that's often applied to meditation. And specifically, it was meditation for people with ADHD, as how I internalized it, was that the worst horse has the most to gain.
Mm-hmm.
The worst horse has the most to gain. The thing that is the farthest from them actually takes them the farthest distance.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings the most power and change. We do not have to see these geographical or psychically geographical spaces between ourselves as something that is a failure or a loss. It's merely opportunity. And we can't, I think, lose sight of that, because and I used to do this with astrology. I was like this. I don't like a Scorpio. I didn't like Scorpios because one fucking Scorpio was a motherfucker to me. She was a real bitch. And I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry. Charlotte, you suck. I hate you. She was awful. She threw she was like taking my medication. She was stealing my meds. And I called her out on it. She threw a bunch of stuff. Then she moved out, and then she would drive by our house after she moved out and threw bottles at it. And so I just went over to her house and I said, you know what? Fuck this bitch. What isn't a felony? And I found out that if you let the air out of someone's tires without cutting the tire, it's not a felony. And so every day I walked a mile and I would let the air out of all of her tires, and then I'd walk home, and then I'd watch TV with my roommate and we would laugh. And then on the 30th day, I went there. It's like basically the myth of Hanukkah in a different iteration. But on the 30th day, she had left this 5-pound bag of edamame in our freezer. And I took the edamame and I went to her house and I spelled out her name in edamame so she knew it was me. And I was like, fuck you. And for a long time, I was like, I can't do Scorpios. Both of my writing partners are Scorpios. Some of the most important relationships in my life have been Scorpios. My grandmother, toxic Scorpio. But I had to recognize over time, I was exposed to all these different signs. And that was the way that I was filtering life, you know? And what I'd come to realize was that the people that I didn't like generally in a large group get along with, the specific ones ended up being some of the most important people. Buddha loves the worst horse, you know?
Well, I can appreciate that positioning. I'm always there to help out the worst horse. God knows in my life.
I know you are. You truly are like feel like a genuine earth angel, I think. Like I would never ever
Stop.
doubt that well, it's true. It's true. Like I think, and I've told you this before, that part of the reason we are partners and that we've done so much together is it's such a relief to have somebody in your life that you do not have any moral questions about. It's so nice to be able to go, I don't have to worry about this person hurting me or fucking me over, or when we find success being like, are we going to lose sight of it? Because I think both me and you have very, very strong senses of morality and a sense of duty to one another and the people in our lives, to our own detriment.
Here. And that's the way, like, I'm not worried many times about, how something might hurt me, engaging with somebody that may not be as trustworthy as you, but I certainly know how to learn a lesson after the second or third time.
um, should we move on to my understanding of Hullabaloo?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, give me a minute to wrap up mine though, so I can just do the
Yeah.
intro so we know how this works. So long story boring is that after being stood up in Barcelona, I went out for some drinks because that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go out for some drinks and I'll go out alone. I don't need people there with me. I will go out, and I ended up at the bar that Nico works at, and part time. And we met, we started talking, and we both realized that we were creative types. And what was really interesting is that the conversation that went on, we were chatting on and off while you were working for probably a good hour and a half or something, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. And I was pretty loaded by the time it was all done.
We
Like,
have a
you
heavy
know,
pour. Yeah, we do pour.
but we made I made the overture to Nico saying, hey, well, we should keep in touch. You want my Facebook info? Because I'm a Gen Xer, right? I'm an old guy that's still on Facebook. And then, yeah, I asked you, well, what social media are you? And you were like, not a whole lot really, but if you want my number, I can give you my number on WhatsApp. We ended up, saying our goodbyes, and we circled around. I don't know who called who first or how
You
that
told me
happened.
you were gonna call me. You
Okay.
were like, "I'm gonna call you." You said, "I'm gonna call you, and I will call you." And I think it was 10 days, I would say, about. It was like it wasn't an outrageous amount of time, it wasn't like a surprise, but it was just enough time where, like, life had settled, a different week had come in, and I hadn't, like, had to think about it. Like, I thought it was, like, a kind of perfect window.
Because I'm great at time. No,
Yeah.
so anyway, and we started talking some more back and forth, on the phone, and realized that we could build something together. And that's when we wrote the script for Stingray. And that took about a year. So over the last 2 years, this has kind of been building up to this place where then you said to me a couple of times, you're like, I'd really love to have us do a podcast. I'd really love to have us do a podcast. And I was kind of like, I don't know much about a damn podcast, but you know what? My ears are open, my ears are open. Let's try it out. And
Right.
the irony of this is me going to Barcelona and being stood up for the very thing that I thought was possible to do, was bridge that gap between these two generations through what I was gonna do is, like, effectively a road trip interview. "Hey, so what do you think about?" And write a book on that, on these differences. I was gonna be like, 28 and Me, and I felt that would come through that way. But what ended up happening was that, that didn't happen, and Nico comes out of this, who now I consider one of my best friends, dearest friends in the
Me
world.
too, I feel the same way about you. I can't you're the one of the most you're literally one of the people I call immediately. I'm like, I reach for Kate and you. It's like, if Kate doesn't answer, it's Chad. It's always one of you 2. 'Cause you do answer. This is the thing about you, is that I will always say this about anybody who needs to know this about Chad. Chad is very reliable. Like, there are moments where Chad has dropped the ball and it sucks. But I will say that those are moments, because the timeline and let the record show that Chad is an incredibly reliable and trustworthy person, and that is few and far between in this world. And so
Check
it
is
is.
in the mail.
Yes, thank God, because I told you I read the script you sent me. Do you think I did good?
Awesome, dude. Awesome.
Okay, perfect.
I should sell like 4 more houses this month because of
Okay,
that.
awesome. And buy the houses. Trust him. He's not
But
increasing the prices. We swear.
but The thing
Also,
is
they're
that
not haunted, yeah.
yeah, right. The thing is that I jumped on board with it, and what I found is that not only did I get my wish to explore the 2 generations and how we interact, and I also got a screenplay out of it. We got a screenplay out of it, this incredible friendship, and this podcast as a
Right.
result. And now maybe if we can kind of switch it over to you and talk a little bit about how you saw the podcast coming together.
Yeah, so I think I can be more brief because I think a lot of it was already covered and I've already said a lot. But what I will say is that for me, one of the things that's come to me from the universe, right? And I've always been asked and has been like, I guess one of the gifts I have, I would say, is that I have a very good memory. I have a really, really like like my mind is a steel trap when it comes to the things that I consume. And since I was like about 20, I started to do these lists. And when I was 20, I that's when I was like, I'm gonna read 50 books this year. And I I used to attach like kind of like idealizations of people that I looked up to, like friends or people that were older or that I had a crush on, that I would be like, "I wanna be like them," and then I would go do these ambitious things, and eventually, as I got older, I didn't need other people. I had now created a kind of a path for myself of self-growth through media and through art, and in my early years, I was very much, I didn't know what kind of artist I was gonna be. But then as I got older, it was just so obvious it was going to be related to cinema, music, and books because I grew up near a library. And that was what freedom was to me. And that's what people have come to me for many years, where they go, "Oh, can you write me a reading list or write me a book list, etc." And when we made our screenplay together, it was just such a it was a real ride. Like, we really, like, were those characters in the screenplay. And many times, like, we went through so much of a journey there, and, you come out with a greater knowledge of the person that you're working with. And the knowledge I think that I came out, and I hope you did too, was just that, like, this is a really amazing person. I Even though Stingray, it's possible that that script may not get ever, if it never gets made, it's the only script of mine that if it didn't get made, I don't have any regrets about it, because it really does feel like this thing that's like the embodiment of a kind of a love for one another
Mm,
that was the process of making it. And during that time, like, I brought in that kind of, like, media consumption, like, let's read books, let's read movies, and Chad was kinda like, "This is a great idea for research," and he did it. He was doing the damn work, which is, like, really hard to find. Because for me, I'm always usually isolated in the amount of commitment I put into a kind of like self-education of reading movies, watching and all this stuff. And because Chad was like one of the few people that I've ever like done it with who did it, it was like, hey, this is something. And more than that, it was the conversations we started to have about it, which showed that we had these different perspectives. And so when we were talking about making a podcast, it was going to be two podcasts originally. It was going to be this media consumption podcast and then this generational podcast, because we each had our own, like, our own interests. And then it was like, what if we were able to combine those forces together, much like we combined the forces of ourselves, to create something that was interesting. And so Hullabaloo is a cross-generational media podcast where we consume books, music, movies, niche cultural references, people like Kathy Griffin, that's coming up. Like, individuals, we'll do retrospectives on individuals and whatever else we need. If it represents something that's worthy of research and understanding and exploration, and also stems not only good conversation, but a bridge to one another. And
Mhm.
I see Hullabaloo as this hypothesis that art can bring people together, and that commitment to, like, when it's built on a foundation of love and friendship, um, that differences can be transcended.
Mhm.
And we do like and see different things, but I know from the episodes we've recorded and what we've started to understand as we're coming through them is that the most beautiful examples of what Hullabaloo has to offer are when we both were committed to understanding each other.
And
And
it
that's
comes from 2
yeah,
different, I mean, like, it really does come from 2 different places. There are
totally,
some things that are really important to you that aren't so much to me, that and vice versa, but at the end of the day, you've done a really good job of bringing it together that, yeah, we're both willing to give each other the moment and time. Like, for me, it was important to review Jonathan Livingston Seagull, you
totally.
know? For you, you had some other ideas that, like, what,
Tokyo
even
Story, for example, yeah.
yeah, Tokyo's exactly. So reviewing this stuff is, um, hopefully gonna bring us closer together with our audience, right?
Right, and it's an opportunity because Chad and I are both we're lifelong learners to be, like, cliche, but we're both interested in personal growth and spiritual growth. This is a spiritual podcast. It's not, like, you're not here for the spiritualism necessarily, you're not here for the politics necessarily, we're just us. But life is political, life is spiritual, and even in the face of nihilism, like, what we're trying to figure out even how to process and transcend that, and we're using art in a myriad of forms to do it. And for anybody who wants that reading list, wants that movie list, wants that, this is just a place for you to go, hey, do you want to join us in the mental gym?
You're here.
You're
And
invited to the conversation.
yeah, and invited in that conversation in the way of maybe there's some things that, the audience you have that you want to bring to us that we haven't seen. And
Totally.
we're very open to enjoying that interaction as well.
And the other thing is, and this is what I would love for the future, since this is our first episode and we're going to send out our prayer, which is that hopefully in the respect, like, there's going to be debates. There's going to be moments where we're like the gay view, maybe. But it's like, is that this commitment to, like, not only love and friendship, but, like, wanting to understand, it's a kind of a discipline. Just like showing up for art and showing up for self-development is a discipline. It's a discipline. It's a discipline to wanting to understand each other. And so hopefully what we'd like to cultivate is a community of 33.5 million listeners.
Million.
Million who extend that to each other. And this is the beginning. And it's Hullabaloo, let's see what happens, but that's my wish. And what's yours, Chad?
My wish is that, again, that we can bring some joy back into the life of people, a break from the day-to-day monotony of maniacal craziness, and that we can all maybe enjoy some things that we might not have enjoyed on our own accord, but with it being put in front of us, we're able to enjoy in a way that lightens up life a bit.
Beautifully said.
So, from us,
To you,
we love you.
it's Hullabaloo. We love you.
We love you,
Yeah, and I love you.
and I love you. All right.
Okay.
Until the
Peace
next
out.
time. Night,
First
night.
episode. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.